Welcome back, Real One Crew, to another episode of Just Keep It Real. And I'm your host, Makala, and thank you guys for tuning in to yet another episode. Thank you so much for showing so much love and support to the previous episodes. I hope you guys have enjoyed them so far. We have some heavy hitters coming in to kick off the season, and we also got some more great conversations coming too for the rest of the season. We are not going to prolong the time. We have an amazing guest with us on today. She is a social worker advocate. Her mission is to help others grow and heal. She is one of my good personal friends. I have had the privilege and honor to be on her podcast. Please help me in welcoming Miss Simone. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, Makayla. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation.
Thank you for joining us. I understand life be lifing and we be in two different places at one time. But I thank you for just taking the time out and coming onto the show. It is always amazing to have someone that's in their field to explain and teach us some things and give us some gems, because we may not know all the ins and out that comes with being a social worker and all that you have to experience while being in the field. So it's always great to hear someone's passion and the mission of why they're doing what they're doing. It always is a great thing to hear. I just want to give you this time to introduce yourself to the audience and to explain who you are and what you do.
Well, I think you did a pretty good sum up job. As she said, I'm Simone Muschett. I am a school social worker by day. I'm a licensed social worker in the state of New York. I practice in New York City specifically, and my day job primarily is in school social work. However, my focus is children and family welfare. I have 3 degrees. I'm working on my 4th degree. So I was first an educator for 7 years before I transitioned into school social work. And I transitioned from education to social work because I felt like my students needed more than just someone to teach them about books. They needed support of how to navigate conflicts in their lives, how to access resources that would help better them. And that inspired me to start my nonprofit, Resilient Young Minds, and also go back to school for social work. And through continuing to work in the school system from a different perspective, not from a teacher perspective, but now from a social work perspective, an angle on top of continuing to run Resilient Young Minds, I've been able just to see the gap in the generations, and how there's just a lack of communication. It's a big communication gap. And part of it is lack of understanding, lack of being able to connect with one another, because a lot of people's defenses are up. And so with Resilient Young Minds, we create safe spaces for trauma storytelling. Because I believe that if we are able to come out the gate when we first meet someone and be able to be vulnerable with them, then it makes it easier to work with them or have a difficult conversation in other settings. So that's a little bit about me. I'm currently a doctoral student. I'll be graduating, God willing, by the end of this year. And my focus is really trying to increase resiliency in young people. They're very sensitive right now because they don't have the social skill set, because they're not growing up in the same environment that requires them to be social. So we have to create intentional spaces and moments to teach them how to socialize and how to process some of the conflicts that they're going through. They can't do that without the adults in their life. And that's just the bottom line. And so right now I'm going around sharing this framework that I created called Arise. And it's a 5-step formula that parents, adults, even kids can use on each other. But it's really designed for parents, or at the time, my mentors, to communicate, to support their mentees in some of the conflicts that they were having. And some of them could have been from, I'm getting bullied, there's a fight about to break out, these kids about to jump me, all the way to, I don't know how to pay for college, I really want to go to this school, but I can't afford it, my mom wants me to go here. So there's just a range of what a social and emotional conflict could be. But the point of the matter is, because people don't have safe spaces to talk about the things that are really bothering them, it eats away at you slowly and slowly. And so my goal is to put an end to that and start creating healing spaces between youth professionals, parents, and young people.
That's amazing to hear. Okay, graduate, doctorate. I love that. I love that. I support everybody that's getting their degree while trying to also do in their career at the same time. I applauded you. I'm proud of you. Keep going. You are almost there. I appreciate the time for you coming in and speaking with us. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the topic. You spoke a little bit about resilience, but our topic for today is mind over matters, building mental resilience. So when you hear the word mental resilience, what does that mean for you?
That means the ability to overcome matters of the mind, things that bother you, things that you can't handle, but you still endure it anyway. Something that you know you can't handle, but you still do it anyway. When you get knocked down, right? So this is the mind, right? You fell off your bike 8 times yesterday. You got the images in your mind. You could see it playing over and over and over. If you wanted to be like, you know what, riding a bike is not for me. I done fell 8 times. You could say, like, yes, I had a traumatic moment. That's not for me. That taught me that riding is not for me. But the resilient mind is going to still wake up the next day and get on the bike anyway, in spite of all those same images and knowing that they fell 8 times the day before.
It's amazing. Piggyback a little bit because you gave a great answer. But piggyback, you touched on a lot of what I was going to say, was just overcoming what your mind is telling you to do. The mental resilience, knowing that, okay, I may fail down, but I can get back up again. And also, like, ignoring the negative talk. When I think about mental resilience, you're ignoring what the naysayers are saying, what other people are telling you, what you can do or what you will not become. But in your mind, you're like, I am going to overcome this. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to go through that. I'm going to be okay. Like, when you hear mental resilience, how do you feel when you work and you work with encounter different youths every day? How do you feel the youth of this generation are lack mental resilience?
Because nobody is modeling it for them. The adults around them lack mental resilience. And if I'm at home watching adults around me react and emote in certain ways, if I know that mom, dad, uncle, whoever is angry, and when they are angry, they punch walls. When I'm at school and I'm angry, why wouldn't I punch a wall? Not to say that mom, dad, or whomever was intentionally trying to teach you should do this or this is appropriate. No, but we all are human beings and we're all interacting with life and we all have feelings and we all react. There was a time when I was growing up that children weren't allowed to be in the same room as adults, or they weren't allowed to listen to certain content if it had cuss words in it, or there was just like this expectation that like kids were to be protected and they needed not just to be physically protected, but mentally protected from adult things because their brain is not developed enough to process. But now we have technology, right, as almost like a mediator that stops parents from actually communicating with their kids. It's here's your tablet, here's your phone, go play your game. And then now they're opening portals and exploring all these different things that their brains cannot handle. And they come into school and they're experimenting, they're copying, they're testing. They want to see what's going to happen if what they saw on the video is real. And if adults aren't being proactive in addressing these things, then it becomes, and also not just proactive, but honest. Adults always want to act like they're invisible to children. Like kids can see you. If you in the room, mommy crying because daddy just yelled at you, like your kids can see and hear you. That they know what's going on. So when they ask a question and you brush it off or make up a white lie to cover it up, that frustrates kids, and then that also widens the communication gap because now they can't trust nothing that you say and you're their parent. Kids take lying or being lied to like the most offensive thing in the world because they're so that they will always be honest. And that's why I do not react to kids regardless of what they did. They could have turned up a whole classroom. I'm not going to meet them with that crazy energy because at the end of the day, it's not going to help. And two, I'm trying to make a point. I'm not behaving like that towards you. So you don't need to behave like that towards me. I'm not speaking to you with a nasty attitude. So you don't need to speak to me with a nasty attitude. Okay, now that our voices are calm, do you need a moment to calm down? Okay, I'll give you a moment. I'll give you 5 minutes to take a breath. When you're ready, you could talk to me or you could write it down. Some people write it down. Some people, after a minute, they're ready to talk. Just giving them a moment to collect themselves is enough. They don't even need all the time. And they be shocked, like, oh my gosh, this adult asked me what I wanted to do, what I needed. And then they say what they feel. And what they feel in their little world of children is valid, but it gets invalidated all the time, especially if they didn't see it. So it's the one kid against the other kid, and then they use the stereotypes of what they believe the children's character is and decides who's lying and who's telling the truth. And they be wrong all the time because kids switch up every day. They're growing, learning, and changing every day. One kid could have been a mess today, and then tomorrow it's a whole opposite kid. So it's when you talk about developing or cultivating mental resilience, I learned very quickly that you have to start with the family or the adults. If you can't communicate with the adults or have some type of power over the kids, I started in high school. I started initially in middle school, which was different, but when I was doing rhyme, I was in a high school. And because they were high school kids and they could move around on their own, I was able to meet up with them at Starbucks or what have you and have sessions with them because they're able to move around. Elementary school kids, like, you need their parents to be on board if you're trying to do something like that. And if they don't agree with the values that I'm trying to instill that I believe is going to cultivate resiliency, then it's not going to work because it happens in school all the time. Like, you try to teach the kid one thing and then they go back home and it's unlearned and then you got to do that again and it's a circle. I don't got time for that. It's a village. We need to work together. And in working together, what I've found is that parents who really, really want to work on help their kid and they don't know how, when I start to step in and I start to share and be I guess you could say the bridge between the child and the parent will start to admit and start to reflect and see like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that when I did that, that's what they meant. This is what I was doing at that time. But I didn't realize this is how it impacted them. Or you know what? I know they witnessed this horrible incident between me and that family member. I didn't realize how much it was still impacting them, or I thought they got over it. They be honest. I had a mom tell me the other day she ain't got no food. Like, people out here, parents are being honest and open and vulnerable, but society somehow, especially in the education system, I see they are blaming parents for something that they also don't know the answer to. And I always tell people that in the school systems, they are the ones that went to school to be educated and got all these fancy degrees to learn how to handle children. You do not have to have no experience, no degrees, no nothing about children to have a kid. So it's an unrealistic expectation to think that a parent can't genuinely have a behavioral problem with their kid that they do not know how to address. And it's sad that society constantly promotes that we should just slap, give them a little pow pow and get them into submission instead of trying to figure out what the problem is. Because that's where the resiliency is going to come up. It's the false narrative in your mind that's keeping you from getting past whatever it is that's causing the emotional disruption. It's the internal conflict. So we have to get it out from the internal to the external to expose it, lay it out, and call it out for what it is so we know how to address it and how to move forward.
Right. You touched on so much, just a lot of things I just want to talk, especially with the vulnerability and being open, especially when you've been lied to by a parent. It does change the trust because I know what I went through growing up. And I used to see, I thought I had the picture perfect family and everything. But then the first time I saw my parents argue, it just like my whole dream just like shattered because I thought everybody was okay, everybody was happy. That's what it seemed to me because that's what was presented to me. And I get it. Some parents, they do try to protect their children from like seeing us fight or seeing us argue. Now, this particular time, my parents made it their mission not to argue in front of me. So it was just this particular day. Me and my brother walked back home because I forgot something. We were at my grandmother's house for the night. And I walked back home and he walked with me to go get something. And that's the first time I seen them argue. But they did it. They waited till after we left. But my brother was older, so I'm more sure he's seen more of it. But at that point, he was older. It didn't really bother him. But with me, I was so young and they were just like, we don't argue in front of her. But then after the first time I saw it, and I feel like my dad knew I saw it because I asked him the next day, I said, why were you and mom fighting? And he was just like, he just brushed it off like, don't worry about it. But then I feel like after he knew that I knew, it was just like, okay, now I don't gotta pretend no more. She knows that we argue. So then he started like I just started seeing them argue more and more in front of me. So as a child, that like did something to my mental because I'm just like, I thought we were happy. I thought y'all were happy. So why are now all of a sudden y'all are not happy. So it does take a toll on a child when they do see their parents hurt because you don't understand conflict. You don't understand when people are yelling. You know, you may see it on TV, but TV and reality are two different things. So when you see it and you see two people that you love and that have been portraying that they've been happy all this time, that does something to you. And then society does play a major role in putting unrealistic expectations, not just on parents, but on people in general, especially people of color. Not trying to play the race game, but there's a lot of unrealistic expectations just on like just for women because they think we're just made to be the carrier of everything, that we can't have an off day, that we can't break down. Women are just made to be strong and hold up the man. But sometimes we need to take a time too and reflect. We need to be okay so we can make sure everything else is okay. Because if we're not okay, everything else is not going to run smoothly. But you touched on so much, but as an educator, when you see it, for some of our listeners that may not understand what resilience means, how can you explain that as far as resilience?
I think that people make it more complicated than it is. All it is the ability to adapt to adversity. And I always like to let people know adaptation can look different. And people use negative ways to adapt and positive ways to adapt. If you experience something traumatic, like many women have been sexually assaulted, right? For example, you have some women that become motivational speakers, they create programs, they want to, empower, like they go different routes. But then there's some that become more promiscuous, or they decide, you know what, they're going to help out another girl through the path that they went through, because in their mindset, that is helping, but that's not helping the greater society or the greater community, right? So but it's still resiliency because they are adapting to their situation. They are making a means for themselves. They're surviving. They're learning from it and then taking what they learned from that situation and using it to continue to survive so they can make it to the next stage and whatever they're trying to do. I'm sorry. And that's the major aspect about resiliency. It's continuing to go despite that person that wronged you, despite that you didn't get what you wanted, despite the fact that you failed, despite like just you keep going. Okay, you had a bad day, you had a bad week. You know what I mean? Like, okay, if you are walking in purpose, then you can get over it and move forward and figure out what the next step is. But if it's constantly bothering you and you miserable, then you no longer feel in alignment with purpose. Then you need to seek that alignment and perhaps you don't need to be there anymore. And that's the part that people don't understand. Like, know when it's your time to exit. Stop forcing yourself to stay in places and spaces that your spirit is trying to evict you from. Like, you know it. And the thing is that we don't do what we want to do. We want to fulfill like our fleshly instincts all the time. Like, that person made me feel, insecure or dumb or embarrassed. So now I'm going to make them feel embarrassed, or I'm not going to do this. It's like, that's petty. If you ain't do your work, hold yourself accountable, suck it up and move forward. What made that difficult was when mental health came in, because 80s baby era, we got it hard. Like, our parents were really tough on us. And that is why we have our own pressures that we put on ourselves on top of our parents that add that pressure. So that's where that mental health come on, because we have this connection of we have to take care of our family. Our parents brought us here to this country so that we could have a better life, to take care of them. That's like the Caribbean passed down mindset expectation from our generation. So we were more responsible and it mattered more to us to be perfect and do the right thing. These kids don't got that connection because their parents are, one, much younger, and two, this is not this community that they live in, because it wasn't just like that in my house. Many of my peers in my generation, you could pull up and ask them, and they'll give you a similar testimony of what it was growing up in our generation. Like, that was a societal expectation. If it takes a village, that's not the expectation right now. in our society. It's very divided. It's very, I don't trust you. And so because people's stress levels are so low, the offenses are so high, and people are just reacting. Why are you reacting to all these little offenses? But to your point, Makayla, when you bring race into it, this just came into my thoughts as I thought about my students. I don't even know if it's something that's abnormal for kids in general, but what I know is that how it's being handled is matters. I think all kids go through this phase, right? Black, pink, purple, yellow, orange. I don't know. Because I bonded with all kids. It don't matter. But yes, I predominantly work with Black and Hispanic kids. And I noticed that my Black male students, they could feel betrayed. They could feel like, somebody's talking to them. They don't like how they look. They're not liking how their outfit is feeling. They feeling a little insecure and they react. And then they say this is what they feel. And people just say like that's not how they're supposed to respond and leave it at that. And they just get in trouble. But if it's a girl where she's not feeling secure or she's being bullied or teased by another girl, they sit down and have the girls talk it out and do a mediation. And the boys see that. So from a child, boys are already being sent these implicit messages that their voice doesn't matter. And girls, we don't know no better. We in our own world, but we're getting already cultivated in a different. They already setting us up for failure. So when you have stories from childhood of when you tried to step up, you tried to be brave, you tried to do all those things, and it didn't work. But when you threw a tantrum and people was tired of you, you got to go have a day off. You got to go chill. You got to be in a space that was at peace. You would show out just so you could go to your space of peace. And that's all we need to recultivate what that space of peace is so that we could build challenges and milestones for them to achieve to increase their resilience capacity. That's all it is. People are not speaking to each other and they are not listening. You can't say, berate me for 2 minutes and then say why you did all of that. And they need a moment to process all this berating you just did, swallow up the emotions that probably just erupted from the fact that you just got berated by an adult. And then now they want you to say, answer me. Let me collect my thoughts for a moment. They don't answer me. Like, now I really don't want to talk because I'm trying to answer you and you're not even giving me a moment to respond. And I'm 6 and I don't really know like half the things you just said.
Right. There's so much. You covered 2 questions in one, but you touched on so much and like it's so true rebuilding because I'm I morely deal with, I work with all types of groups. So, but I just see like the lack in the communities and it's in both, like I said, it don't matter which community, everybody goes through this at a young generation that doesn't, having a younger sibling, looking at what her generation has to go through. I'm just like, man, like y'all are really in a different time than us. Because when I was growing up, I mean, even though I grew up in a 2-parent household, but my mom really raised me. Even though she was married, my mom became a single parent while being married. And some people think like, oh, that's not a common thing. No, that's a true thing. You can be married but be a single parent. If the other parent is not present during the child's life, you're pretty much raising that child on your own, but you just have that married title. It's all these titles, a father, a mother, that just because you had a baby, that'll make you a mother. Just because you help create a baby, that'll make you a father. What makes you a father is you showing up, you being there, you doing your part. That's what makes you a father. Just because you helped it, that don't mean nothing. So my mom became a single parent while being married. So my mother was extremely tough on me. Like growing up in a household strict, then also in a Christian household. My mom raised me up in the church. So there was a lot of things I wasn't allowed to do. And my grandmother being, the matriarch of the family, there's a lot of things she didn't believe in, a lot of things that she didn't go for. For like one example, my grandmother did not like Harry Potter because she was like, it's witchcraft. She's like, they're casting spells, they're doing all types of stuff. So we were not allowed to watch it. If they were showing it in class, we couldn't watch it. If they was like, oh, we're going to read the book, you can't read it. Like, I'm like, even certain cartoons, like it started off just innocent, like Foster and the House of Imaginary Friends. That was me and my cousins. One of our favorite shows we used to watch. We're going over her house. One particular day, she just happened to hear the theme song. Mind you, we have watched this at her house numerous of times, but she heard it and she was just like, what is that? And we told her and she was just like, Ain't no boy living in a house with a bunch of people. They imagine them demons he talking to. And we were just like, in our minds, it's innocent. But they put a lot of stuff in the cartoons. But having somebody that sees that and has that can see and has discernment to see in the spirit, that's an amazing person to have, because we think it's just a cartoon. It's funny. It's cool. But in her mind, she's seeing it as, okay, no, this is another type of situation. So our parents protected, well, my parents protected me from a lot of things, sheltered me from a lot of things, because they knew the damage it could cause and the longing effects it would have. And when you being an educator, do you see that in the parents, or do you see that in the generation that kids have that protection? Those parents that can see, like, I'm protecting my child, I'm shielding my child to protect them for the longing effects that it may have on their life.
That's a good question, and it's a tough question, and I'm gonna try to respond to it as diplomatically as possible, because the answer is yes and no, right? It's both, right? I see that children overall desire attention, period. So this generation would appreciate that grandpa that's sitting down telling stories and lecturing about his time, because his time compared to these kids' time is like, what? Like, so it's actually interesting to them. It wasn't interesting to us. It's actually interesting to them. So that's a misconception that adults, parents are just hot, right? So there's that aspect of it. Then you have adults that I 100% believe every parent wants to protect their kid, period. Whether they have the tools or whether they are fully equipped to do so, that's different. But I believe that every parent, man or woman, that has a child, they have the intention for that child to do well. Now, how hard, how resilient these parents are 100% impacts how resilient that child is going to be and how they move. So some parents are going hard, are seeking workshops and stuff. And to be honest, they put up with a lot. They endure more mistreatment when they advocate for their kids. So they place these labels on the parents that want to advocate for their children, that are asking good questions. Because people are not doing right by children. People that work in schools, all people that work in schools are not always doing right by children. There are people there are more and more people that are there for a check than they for the heart. And when you think about it, the residual effects long term that's going to have on us. I like working in school because of what the school did for me, the relationships I had with the teachers there, the things that they put me on to, the activities that we had. It was more than just school for me. It was an experience. Now, these kids are not getting that same type of experience from their teachers, and their parents notice. And so they're calling it out, honestly. And educators are taking that offensively because their job is hard. It is, but they don't want to tell nobody that it's hard. They want to hide and make it seem like they're a good teacher because they can handle their class. But if there are parents that can't handle the two kids they got at home with their emotion, why would you think that people can't understand that you're struggling with 30 kids that's struggling with their emotions by yourself? So there's this mindset that we can't be human around each other and we just making stuff up. It's good and bad people in every group. Okay, there's still educators that still flying, thriving because they just genuinely love what they do. So it doesn't matter any of the nonsense that's happening. As long as there are kids in front of them that they could pour into, that's enough for them. Unfortunately, those teachers are becoming tired because they become carrying most of the weight of taking care of the kids' mental state, while the other teachers that don't care get to not engage, not to do stuff. When they upset at them, they come and vent to the teachers that they like, and that takes up more out of their time, out of their day. And no one gives them grace for that. No one gives them, because people are jealous that they have that relationship with the kids. So it's all of these interpersonal social problems hindering us from being resilient to move forward. We still haven't really moved forward from COVID, at least in the education world. Education and social work, we still tired because we never really had a break. But the expectations just slap back on us as if life is normal. Like, nah, now we have to deal with the residual mental impact of that whole season that just occurred. And we have new seasons in front of us that are still and currently occurring. So parents, I think, need to be educated. We need more parenting skills classes. I do think that schools that recognize that that's a need in their parent community, then they need to create parent workshops. And schools do that. I'm a part of the teams that put them on, so I know that they happen. But attendance is low, and there's so many reasons why attendance is low. You could say the parents don't care, but some of them don't even know what's going on. Don't even call them and tell them, hey, this is what's going on in the school, because they tired. They don't even tell them what's going on with their kid. Like me, I just want the parents to be involved. Good, bad, or indifferent, this is what's going on. They have to be required to send those things out. And even though they go out, they don't have love into it because they just checking off a box to see that they did it. And they wonder why they don't get back the results. So I don't think parents are a problem. I think they need support because of the generational problem that we all are having, and they're not getting that support. Instead, they're getting blamed. And that scares me, honestly, because that's what it was when school to prison started. You know, when we can't get our kids in order and the system decides that they're going to have to step in, we've been done that.
Yeah, have such a heavy job. You're like parent, teacher, you're everything, but with one description. Your job is just to teach, but some students may not need a teacher. Some students may need that second mom. And I understand because even when I was in school, I built relationships with teachers that I never even thought. I had such a negative, like not even impact, but a negative mindset when it came to school, especially when I got to high school. I was like, I'm do my 4 years and I'm done. And then we used to think like school was a prison. And we used to take pictures of the classrooms, like, okay, these are the cells. And then when we go outside in the courtyard, that's the yard. And we made it funny, but it's so much truth to that because when the schools and parents can't get in control of it, the law loves to step in and be like, well, you can't control it, but we're going to control your children. And that's, like I said, it scares you, like hearing it, it does something for me to hear because I hear the stories all the time and I see like me just being in schools, like going back to like if I'm picking up my sister from school and just seeing how all the kids run around, like there's no sense of what's the word? There's no reverence for authority. And that's the major thing. There's no reverence for authority. A lot of these new generation kids do not have respect for authority. And I've seen some situations where parents are friends with the kids and not the parents. And that, it grows and grows and grows. In this generation, like it worries me that like, of course my generation were the next generation up. But the generation after me, the generation after them, if this is what is going to keep happening, like just seeing it and hearing it, honestly, it worries me for when they really grow up and they go into the world, how they're gonna make it, and teaching them resilience and giving them their skills now is a good thing because like you're setting them up for life. You're teaching them things that they're gonna need to know when they get out there in the real world. And I always be saying like I always tell my younger siblings like I'm not gonna always be here with you. Mom's not gonna always be here with you. You're going to have to learn how to do things on your own. You're going to have to learn how to think things through. You're going to have to learn that when you fall down, get back up and keep going and keep trying. It's important for you to know that because it's going to come in a time where you're not going to be able to pick up the phone and call me. There's going to be a time where you're not going to be able to pick up the phone and call mama. Like you're going to, like some of these kids, they have to learn that to be able to know that they can be strong on their own. And I hate to say it, but some of these kids just, they don't have that. And they do need the support.
Yeah, so who's teaching that to them? That's what I always say. When people have conversation about the generation right now, my biggest issue is they need to learn this. They need to learn that. Okay, so whose responsibility is it to teach them? The parents that gave birth to them or the people that went to school to get degrees to get a check to educate them? Because they do what they see on either side. They mimic the behaviors of what they see, not what you say to them. Back in the day, we used to say, oh, practice what you preach. Yeah, that's the same. It's called social learning theory by Albert Bandura. It's research. It's known that that's how children learn, by what they see, their social environment. So whatever you want them to do and model, y'all have to model it. What they see, why they don't respect authority, is that authority tells them to do one thing and then they do something else. They promise them, oh, if they be quiet and sit down, they will get this. And they sit down and be quiet and they don't get it because it goes back to white lies and trying to manipulate kids into submission. These kids do not want to be submitted. They want to grow and understand who they are as a person. They want to be contributing members to society. And they're trying to do that right now because they see that their parents are struggling. They see they're struggling with money. They see they're struggling to be safe. They see they're struggling with housing. They hear that they say that they need money. So they want to help. And they think they're told you go to school to learn how to be a man or a woman or whatever the case may be. And they're not getting that. They getting, I need to sit at a computer and be quiet so I could take this test and get high scores so my school could get extra money for making the kids take tests and get high scores. But yet it's okay for them to disrespect somebody. When I'm in the school from the time I was 22 all the way till now, I never had an issue with that because I'm a human being first. And what I'm not going to do is have a little kid talk to me crazy. So the first time a little kid talks to me crazy, I address it right then and there. And then all the kids know, you can't talk to Miss Muschett crazy. And when they have their moments and they slip up, I don't give them no attention. They got to soak in that. No, I can't speak to you because I don't speak with disrespectful children. Nope, you can't get nothing from me. And I'm showing love to everybody else. I don't got to do nothing more because you're going to recognize that that's not how you're going to talk to me. And then they always come and apologize because I'm always doing something fun. I'm always doing something that's to their benefit. And because of that, they want to be included. So then they learn if I want to be included in the resilient rhyme world and the Miss Muschett world, I got to act accordingly because all the kids over here act that way. That's the way she expects me to act. And I really want to be a part of that more than I want to act like a foolish child. And then they switch up. But the thing is, adults don't stand on business because they're overwhelmed and stressed. They just want to get the kid away that they fold every time. That's why kids don't respect them because they know, okay, it's only a matter of time before they're going to crack.
Right. I hear the passion in your voice. I'm just like, yes. I was like, look, they don't stand on business. I'm gonna get that shirt. I already said the last few episodes, I'm gonna get that on a shirt. Stand it on business. That's gonna be the word for the year 2025. We stand it on business. But you talked about so much how the parents don't stand on the business and how they're so quick to fold on the children. Why? Not just parents, but
finger pointing. This everybody's pointing fingers. Or when we communicate, that's how it sounds. Because imagine being a parent that's struggling with your kid and constantly hearing that. Parents need to do this. Parents need to do that. Parents. No, it's not just parents. They can't do it by themselves. Educators as well. Agencies. Anybody that's working with young people, you are agreeing to be a part of that child's village. And the parent is the king or the queen of that child's village. So you cannot say you are for that child and you cannot collaborate with the king and the queen of the child's village. So I just like to name that because you're right. They don't respect authority. Parents are not okay with it though. And they do, and sometimes they do try. But because of all the other things in life, they're struggling. So it's like, okay, how are we going to support them in the struggle? That's what schools were supposed to be. But guess what? Educators are struggling and they're not saying it. They complaining and quitting, but the ones that are present are not admitting that they are struggling. The expectations, like you said earlier, are way too high and unrealistic on both ends. Educators are burnt out. It's legit. And they got nasty attitudes because they're tired and burnt out. And they got parents that are educators as well. So when they going home burnt out to their kids, I can imagine how they're reacting to them on burnt out energy. So all adults need to check their energy. Like literally, that's what I be at work. Check your mood, really and truly. You need to check it because it's no longer their kid learning. We're trying to, you're learning. It's almost like it's an assault. Like, how dare you? But then it's not really fake because you only went that hard today because you was having a bad day. But when you having a good day, it don't matter to you if they disrespectful or not.
So we're going to stay on this lane, but we're going to talk about a little bit some more compassion, which is a lot of things that everybody needs to learn to give out to not just themselves, but to younger students that they're seeing. I like the way you say you're educators, so we're still on the same train. because I love this is like exploring the mind of an educator because you see more. I mean, I'm just the outside looking in, but you've done this. You've been in the system. You're still working with kids. You started your own nonprofit for kids to help kids. Exploring the mind of how you seen it, how ways that others can step in and support you guys, because like I said earlier, you have a hard job. You're juggling everything, not just you and parents and extra, but y'all overall, y'all carry a lot. So how can overall we can step in and help make that burden a little lighter? But how do you feel compassion comes in when helping building resilience in children and overall just in building, showing compassion to others as well?
One of the most effective protective factors against like trauma and childhood and adversity and stuff is having a positive adult to talk to. Not period, just a positive adult to talk to. If everyone in the neighborhood makes a decision to see and hear one young person in their community, that will make them more resilient. And what I mean, see and hear, like if you actually look at these kids on a day-to-day basis, you can see when they're going through things. It shows on their face, but nobody cares to ask them what's wrong. Like genuinely, like want to hear what's wrong. 9 times out of 10, the kids I work with, when we get to the bottom of the root, and I be like, "Why you just didn't say that?" They're like, "Nobody asked me. How is that?" So the first step is you have to see them. You have to see and recognize something is wrong because kids are constantly being told to sit down and be quiet. So how are they supposed to discern when they're feeling something that's worthy enough for you to listen to them when you always telling them to sit down and be quiet? So now you are putting yourself in that position to take on the responsibility to seek out when something is off. If that kid that's always bubbly, go lucky, morning, happy, dapping people up, every day, and then one day or a whole week he just coming in with his hoodie on, putting his head down sad, it's your responsibility to walk over to him and be like, "Yo, you okay? What's going on? I noticed that you shifted a little." But they don't. They may wake them up, you need to do your work. Make them up, you need to do your work. Take the hood off your head. But you're not seeing him because clearly something is wrong. I hold my kids after class. If I see that, "Can you stay after class?" And you're not in trouble. I just want to check in with you for a moment. I'll write you a late pass. And then I ask them, "This is what I see." And I could tell you many stories where I do that and the kid just breaks down and cry because something is wrong and they're trying to hide it, be invisible, and nobody cares enough to ask. That's what everyone can do. It's very simple. But there's a resentment that comes to it. Adults feel like, "I got this to do, I got that to do." I have things to do too, but I think that that child's life matters enough that my papers, my grading, whatever it is I have to do is important. And I got testimonies of my kids that said that told me to my face that day when you talked to me, I was thinking of suicide, miss. And I was writing papers because I've always been in school. I've been in school my whole adulthood. Writing papers, I'm like, coming on my prep. "What's wrong? What's wrong? You need to talk." All right. Because I always say, if you need to talk to me, come to me. So now the opportunity comes. I'm on a break. They coming to me. If I say, "No, not now, I have to finish something," that's again, you closing another door. It's the little things. People focusing on when kids is wilding out, throwing their bodies on the floor, in the street, shooting each other, jumping off trains. That's when they want to be like, "Oh, what's going?" The signs was always there. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to listen to her. And she took my whole break, 45 minutes talking. Later, months later, brought up that's what she was feeling. And she was grateful for that conversation because she was feeling like she wanted to go home and kill herself. Make time for them. Kids are screaming for attention. Actually they are because no one is giving them any attention. And when they try, they constantly get yelled at or pushed to the side. Wait. Didn't I tell you to go over there? Go play on your tablet. It's an adult problem. I'm tired of hearing kids needed this because their children train up the child in the way they should go. So if you're mad about where they're going, start training. And training takes time. It's a process and it's not a punishment. That's the other thing. Kids feel like a correction is a punishment, which is crazy because that tells them they're not accustomed of being corrected. You can't tell them to stop without them feeling like they're in trouble. That's all mental. Where are they getting this false narrative or this concept of the world from? And it's all of us. Kids be in elementary school was talking about Diddy. Did I 1 second believe that any parent would agree that that was appropriate? No, every adult from inside the building to outside agree that's inappropriate. But people arguing about whose fault it is, it don't matter whose fault it is. It's all over social media. They could have just stumbled on it on themselves. The point is what we gonna do about it? What's the message are we gonna teach them about what they saw? Because hiding things and pretending they don't exist don't work for this generation. They have access to too much to be fake. Just be real. And honestly, they can handle it. They smarter than us. They smarter than what we were.
Right, right. Because some things my younger sibling be teaching me, I'd be like, I've been here longer than you. You can teach me this, but you said they do know, and it's the stigma. You talk about the stigma, and it's funny how you said this. This was literally my topic yesterday while I was discussing on my radio show. I was talking about mental health and the struggles on campus and overcoming the mental stigma and the stereotypes that are placed that a lot of that not just race but just the stigmas overall that are placed on us when we want to speak up and have that time and to hear that just being that open person that one like I said that yesterday, you never know what that person is going through. You never know when that person's on the verge of their breaking point. And by you showing that you care and that you being open and you having that safe space for them, that plays a major role in the change of what they're gonna do when they go home or what they're gonna do. You just never know. And it's important that you always have that safe space. And when you can't be a safe space for somebody if you don't have a safe space yourself. How can you provide that to somebody else? And for me, it took me a while to learn that and to overcome that and get through that because I also fell behind the mental stigma, was labeled certain things because I was taking the time out to put myself. And I didn't want to be labeled as weak or because I'm like, well, I'm going through this, I'm going through this. And, having that right person to talk to. I had that, but just, because of what the stereotypes and what I was thinking, it prevented me from being opening up and prevented me from like having compassion on myself because I was like, I should know better, should do better, should just like push it off. But I'm just overwhelmed with just words because it's amazing to hear in the testimony that you gave is it does something because like it hits home for me because someone that has struggled with that, especially when I went through what I was going through with my trauma and my pain, I came to that point, that conclusion. And I didn't go to nobody about what I was feeling. The only person I did go to, I went to God about it. And in that one moment, like I cried out, and it's like literally that next day, that Sunday, I got saved. So in that moment, he became my advocate. He became the only person that I could reach out to at that moment. It's not like I didn't have people I could talk to because I did. But when you are being blinded by lies, by the enemy, and you're constantly listening to the negative, and everybody's chiming in, telling you what to do, and you don't know where to go, and you just fall out. There's only one person that I could go to that I knew who could always listen. So my mom gave me the foundation. He gave me the tools. So I knew who God was. I knew who Jesus was. So I knew I could always go to him. So in that moment, I just did it. But you being that person, being the difference, being that one person that somebody can talk to, you just never know what the part that you could play in somebody's life. And it's important that we keep having that conversation and get over these stigmas that's placed on not just students, but overall on mental health. Because there's a stigma behind it. It's like it's factual. You have to do research to talk about things. While I was preparing for the show, I had to get into statistics and see the different things. And for college students, suicide is the second leading death. And that does something to you. That changed my entire perspective because I'm just like, why aren't people talking to them? Why are there no more safe spaces? Why is there no more open communities about it? Why are teachers being more, especially when you think about educators, not just this like pointing fingers, but just overall? Why are there more people like doing what you're doing, staying behind class? Hey, you're not in trouble, but I noticed something is off with you. Aren't you like, why aren't people paying more attention to people and reckon on these signs head on? When you catch it early, you can handle it, and you never know that can change the whole perspective, the whole where it's supposed to go. But why are we having more? So it grew more for me, not frustration, but like, why is there such a lack in such a heavy topic? Because your mental controls everything else. If your mind's not right, your body's not going to be right. Your mind is what sends the signals throughout the body to make the body do what it's supposed to do. So why are we not taking the time out to recognize these signs and help people sooner rather than later?
Well, I feel your frustration. I like your passion. But you know what it is when you just told that testimony about how you didn't have a safe space, but you were blessed enough to have the foundational tools taught to you. So in that darkest hour, you were able to go into your bag of tools and be like, look, I've been doing all of these other things. Let me go back to what my mama and my daddy taught me from young, that I will always have a friend. And the reality is not everyone is born into that type of teaching. Everyone does not have, I did not have that foundation either. And so my dark spaces and moments came when teachers saw me and pulled me into the light. And then I had to deal with my own healing, right? Because those teachers pulled me into the light and they showed me a world of academia that I would not have been exposed to. So I got lost in that side of it, and that's what pulled me through. But I never really dealt with my actual pain or emotional issues personally. But seeing my students literally dealing with cutting, knowing that I overcame cutting or that I struggled with cutting, I felt a responsibility to be like, how can I tell them not to do that when I know, even though nobody else knows, I know that I do that. I engage in self personally and I'm grown. That's something I struggle with and I never got over it because I was doing that in high school. Counselors knew about it. Adults in my life knew about it. Nobody did anything but yelled at me and just told me to stop, right? So to be all the way on this side and to like see it in your face and now you feeling it coming out of you to say, I realize I don't want to be like those adults. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I need to get to the root of why I'm doing this so that I could better lead others. And when you start to peel back the layers of your own trauma and you start to heal from that, then you can, move forward. But then there are people that are called for that and not called to do that, right? So there's people that's lost in that area, and then there's people like you, right? There's people like I who've been through it. That is our job to teach them how. They have the intention, but they don't know how. And that's why we were graced for that. Because my moment with God was about my purpose and about should I be doing this or not? Because it's too much. I didn't understand my gift and why I was being treated for having an impact. I was being mistreated for having an impact. I didn't understand my gift. And once I started realigning myself with God and He showed me that you're the one that's standing in the gap. When you didn't get that hug, when you went through that molestation moment and you felt you didn't have a safe space to talk, what did you need? You needed a hug. And that's when He revealed to me all the kids that I've hugged along the years and why when jobs try to tell me that's illegal, you're not allowed to touch kids. Physical touch is one of the 5 love languages. You cannot tell me that if a child needs a hug, that I cannot hug them. And I'm with them every day, 5 days a week, for 6 hours a day. So I've experienced something that has shown me the evidence, and that evidence is giving me confidence. It's giving me that faith that I can help anybody that wants to be helped. And as leaders that are called to empower and motivate and inspire with our testimony, we have to be able to discern the people we are assigned to. Because just because someone has a problem don't mean we're the ones assigned to help them solve it. Maybe we don't speak their language. Maybe we don't connect with them. That is okay. You let them go and you focus on the people that God assigned you to reach. And that's an issue with kids. Like when you call to teach kids, like the joy comes from their growth. I love to see their personalities develop, the sassiness that comes out, the things that they like or dislike, or like they're not afraid to communicate it if you give it to them. But I also see kids like spirit like start to diminish because who they are and their personality is not allowed in this room or in this space. And then you taking away the clubs. Well, we need you to help with extra academic prep. We need you to help over here. So no more art club, no more basketball club. Oh, the teacher's overwhelmed now. It's the middle of the year. They umping up all this extra expectations. I don't want to do this no more. I can't do this club no more. I'm tired. But the kids are looking forward to it. That's their only time to socialize. That's where they're building community. They don't have spaces to build community anymore. And then after school, you have to pay for it. And that back in the day, it was cool because there was so much things happening in school where you could build community, but there's nothing happening in schools.
Right.
So how do they build community if we are not intentionally, like I introduced play dates at the old school I was working at. We had 3 little active young men in 5th grade that, they were very active. And we had a parent meeting. I called them my 3 amigos. And the parents, they still stay connected to this day. They were in kindergarten at the time. Now they're in, I think, 5th or 6th grade. And the parents still stay connected, but they did play dates because what it is that that was their friends and they wanted to play with their friend and they only see their friend one day in school.
Yeah.
And that's just what all it was. And all they had to do was start, all right, you behave this week, 2 weeks. We go to Dave and Buster's, we go to Applebee's, whatever. And that's what they started to do. And their behavior started to. And this is life. This is simple life stuff, right? And we assuming everybody knows this. Clearly, they don't. Because it's been generation that passed over where that wasn't being followed, that wasn't being passed down. It was being resisted. Some people was like, my mama was strict. I promise I was never going to be that strict with my kid. And it's just like, all right, well, now look at where it's gotten us. Structure still needs to exist. You can be aware of their mental health and still have structure and still stand on business. One doesn't exist without the other. We still need balance. And I think that's where the biggest struggle is. People don't know where to balance, and we could find the balance if we can be vulnerable and be honest and actually get to know one another. I don't want to leave my kid with somebody I don't know or I don't trust or I don't feel comfortable with. And that's valid. And honestly, I don't like working with kids whose parents I don't know. I don't. Because I don't need that child to go home and tell their parents I said something out of context that was not accurate. But because I foster relationships first, if they say something suspect, their parent gonna hit me up like, hey, this happened, so da da da. And I was like, they'd be like, oh, okay, because I know Miss Michelle wouldn't do da da da. Okay, they didn't tell me that part. I get that, Grace, because I seek to have a relationship first. People don't want to have a relationship. It's just transactions. Drop off here, pick up here. Da, da, da. Oh, can I speak? No. I gotta go. Da, da, da. Thank you. Blah, blah. Movement. Oh, you get home. How was school? Was good? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, go do your homework. All right, go play on your tablet. Good night. They don't even eat at the table no more, like as a thing. That's not a thing that they talk, because the kids tell me they business. So you hear different stories and how different households run. And the most thing I hear when I hear about family business, mommy, daddy argued this happened, that happened, all that. It's very rare that I hear family stories. Some I hear they go some places, but they be like, oh, like my daddy couldn't come because of this, or this is my thing house. Sometimes I do 2 birthdays. I have a birthday at my mommy's house, and then I have a birthday at my daddy's house. So my birthday over here is gonna be, you know what I mean? Like they saying it in a positive manner. However, when you grown, you can hear and read between all the lines that they are surrounded by. And the fact that they articulate it so well, they are aware. Even though they're 5 or 4, they could see you. They just want you to see them.
We have touched on so much. I have enjoyed this conversation. It was a needed conversation, just talking about resilience and building mental. We have talked about so much, but we're moving into our final segment in our closing. And the last thing we like to do is just keep it real segment where we just pour into the audience. And this, you could give our listeners advice on how to keep building their mental resilience and keep being open, keep having that safe space. What is advice that you would give to them?
I say, to build resilience, you really have to listen to yourself and trust yourself. Know who you are and be confident in who you are. And you do that by taking risks. When you feel in your heart, you feel like you have a desire to do something, just do it. And it could be something small. You could start with small things. Today, you know what? I think I want to go have ice cream. I got a long day, but I'm feeling for some ice cream. Go and get it and eat it and take a moment and enjoy it and see how that makes you feel. Tomorrow, you know what? I've been thinking about, starting a business. I think I'm gonna go to Starbucks and look some stuff up on my laptop. So you schedule a time. I could actually go to Starbucks from 4 to 5 p.m. You know what? Tomorrow, after work, after whatever, church, whatever, 4 p.m. at this cafe, this Starbucks, I'm going to go and do that. And I'm going to enjoy my pistachio latte with almond milk with it too. And then whatever you accomplish from that, whatever ideas or juices that flow from that, how did it make you feel? I can be very honest When I have these podcast conversations, when I do my sessions, I feel like very high. But when I'm in a school setting environment where people are forcing me to behave and handle children, families, or my job in a way that I don't live, those are the moments where I feel like horrible. I feel drained. My mental capacity is done. And I had to listen to my body be like, you know what? Maybe school systems is not the place for you anymore. God is calling you to something else. Because a lot of times we don't listen to ourselves. We focus on money. We focus on something that's like temporary or that's right now. But you're not thinking about the bigger picture and what you really need. Because if you get what you really need, like you said earlier, then you'll be able to be your fullest self. And I think in order to be resilient, that's part of it. Like having the courage to do the things that you wanted to do, obviously in alignment with purpose and such. But so many of us either delay or do not take the necessary steps that's going to develop our resiliency because of fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear that, oh, this is going to be a waste of my time, fear of exposure, right? People don't want to be held accountable. So it's like if I do something and I fall through, people are gonna tell me, that you didn't do it. I don't want to hear that. There's so many reasons behind why we don't walk in our authentic selves. But I feel like the time is now is so important for people to do that. That's the only way we're going to save lives. And I had a friend that was on my podcast the other day. We talked about self-esteem, like teachers needing high self-esteem. Because when you are wrapped up in a place, it will mentally think that this is how things are, unless you step out of it and you realize, like, okay, it's not me, it's that place. But if you're not into your other things, if you're just, oh, this is my job, I just go here for a check and that's it, and you're not trying to grow, then you're not going to see it. You will when you need that trauma, that stumbling block, that adversity to bring it out of you. Resiliency is not bad. You have to experience negativity or adversity to be resilient or develop resiliency. So whatever the smallest hard thing is for you to do now, try to overcome that. That's that first level of resiliency that you're developing. Then go to the next thing. Then the next thing. It could be like, you know what? I bite my nails and it's not something I don't want to do anymore. Start tracking how often you biting your nails now that you know that you're intentionally trying not to do it, and see how your frequency decreases. That's another thing. We don't even know how to track our own progress. We speak arbitrarily and it creates a depression mindset because you always feel like you're not accomplishing anything when you're doing so much. And I'm number one guilty. I'm not calling nobody out. I'm just saying what it is. I'm number one guilty. People could say, oh my gosh, you're so successful. You're doing. I'm like, nah, I want to the next thing. I got to do this. I got to do that. I don't even sit and bask in any of it. That's what's supposed to be the fun part of the resilience. Because when you force yourself to stop and reflect, it's like, look how far I came. Girl, there was that moment where you thought you wasn't going to make it here. And now it's 5 years later and look at you. You spoke this 8 years ago when nobody supported you. They thought you was crazy. Now look at you.
That's it. That's it. I have enjoyed this conversation so much. You have given us some gems and you actually poured into a lot of things that we need to take more accountability of and to make more awareness of. And I'm glad that you were so open about it and so vulnerable about it. But in closing, where can my listeners support you and see all the great things you have coming up?
I'm definitely active the most on Instagram. It's just easy for me. So if you want to get in contact with me, you can follow me on my personal Instagram page at poetic_J21. If you want to follow me at my Resilient Young Minds page, that's my nonprofit. We're constantly doing community events and programming right now. We have our Boys Resilient Summit that's coming up in March, and we will have other events throughout the year. Our Suicide Walk is going to be coming back in September. So if you want to get any information and details about any of those things, you want to follow us at RYM_INC, and that's on Instagram and Facebook, and you can get in contact with us really quickly there. And if you want to hear my podcast where you want to hear more resilient stories and hear different examples of how people are resilient personally, professionally, or socially, you can follow us at the Our Stories Pod on IG and also the Our Stories Podcast on my YouTube channel, The Real You Social Worker.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Make sure y'all go support, like, share, and subscribe this video. Also, guys, follow me on social media at The Real Makayla. And remember, be you. Don't let nobody else change you. If someone to change you, then they're not for you. Stay safe, stay real, and remember to keep building mental resilience. We'll see you guys in the next episode.